Hey everybody, Amanda Olson here, Master Mom. Welcome to Thursday night where you get to ask questions and I will do my best to answer them. Also trying to tie in with the topic on the Daytime Tri-Cities television show. On Tuesday morning, we talked about what do you do when your child yells at you, you can't make me. So for some of you, this might be uh, a statement that you have never heard from your child, or you're surprised that people do hear that from their children. For some of you, you're like, yes, this is something that is a real struggle for my family, and I really need help with it. But either way, it's good to know what to do to prevent it from happening. It's also good to know that there's ways that children can say, make me, that are very passive and not necessarily so open and aggressive. So hopefully this topic will help a wide range of folks on helping to raise pleasant and disciplined and happy children. So the first thing to do is to understand that this is not a phase that your child is going through or will outgrow or eventually no longer act this way. They're acting this way for a reason. They get some sort of benefit out of yelling this at you or having power over you, getting their way. There's something that is happening to them when they do this that makes them feel better, So we have to understand that. So they're not going to stop doing it as long as it's helping them get what they want or keeping them from doing things that they don't want. They won't stop just because. Or when they turn 9 years old, I'm 9 now, I'm too old to act like that. It doesn't work that way. So I would highly, if you have young children, and when I say young children, like tantrum or yelling, you can't make me, or I don't want to, any kind of things like that, then you definitely want to stop it as soon as possible. They're speaking to you this way, but all they're really doing is just kind of trying to see how am I, how is my voice, how strong am I? So if this starts to happen, you need to use your discipline measures to let the child know in no uncertain terms that yes, whatever that might be at that young age, whether it's put away their toys, go to bed on time, put their plate in the sink, whatever it is that you're working on. Say these things before. No, you do it. I don't have to make me. That you actually follow through and make sure that you do make them. It becomes a battle of wills. And though I don't want you to be on the same level as your child battling with them on this, you don't want to battle, you can't make me. Yes, I can. You can't make me. Yes, I can. That's not what I'm fond of wills more. Let them get away with it. I've got to make sure that I win this battle. So if you've said, okay, you've got to put away your toys and they are defiant with you, make sure they understand that nothing else is going to happen until they put away the toys. They don't get to go outside and play. They don't get to go watch TV. They don't get to go to dinner. I mean, whatever it is that's next that is supposed to happen after they put away their toys, then that does not happen until they get this done. That can be a very long time, or it can be a very short time. It really just depends on the child, and it depends on have they been able to get away with this behavior before. So make sure that you're prepared to stick it out. That's the hard part as the parent. So if it's, all right, we're going to go outside and play after you pick up your toys, the going outside to play never happens if the toys don't get picked up. And you have to stick to that. You have to be disciplined and stick to that. And stand over them, watch them, tell them which toy to pick up first. They may be crying, they may be mad at you. None of that matters. What matters is that at that young age, they understand that when you say pick up your toys, that's exactly what they're going to have to do. There's no negotiation in it. If it becomes a real problem at this time, where they just are not being compliant at all, throwing a temper tantrum, then you have to have some consequence in that. Okay, so now we're going to pick up our toys and we are not going to go outside to play afterwards. You're going to be in timeout. So a consequence if the behavior is really, really defiant. And as hard as it is best if you as the parent and as the authority don't lose your cool, don't get angry, but just stay patient. Now it may be a 5-minute job that takes an hour. So make sure that you stick with that, even if it takes the full hour. Don't give in just because you're tired. What will happen is the child will realize if I wait this long, then I win. And the next time that you go through this, and there will be a next time, it's just going to get worse. I hear a lot of parents that talk about, and I mentioned this earlier, that they're going to outgrow it. Well, they're not. What they're going to do is learn from whatever behavior you. So if your behavior is to give in to their demands, they will continue to demand, and they will continue to demand bigger and bigger things. So at 4 and 5, it may be aggravating, 4 and 5 years old. At 10 and 11, it really gets to be a behavioral issue. You're at a friend's house and you say, okay, I'm here to pick you up. It's time to go home. And they're like, no, I'm not ready to go yet. And they say that in front of, the other kids, the other parents. That's a pretty defiant behavior, but it's not uncommon, and especially if it's not a behavior that you stopped when they were very young. It's not necessarily something, like I said, they're not going to grow out of it. They're just going to learn that this works. And if I embarrass mom in front of other people, she's not going to yell at me in front of other people. And I'll get to do what I want. I'll get to stay longer if I want, because I'm in control of this relationship. And again, remember that when children are acting out like that, a lot of times it is to have power over you. And that's really just not something that you can allow. You can't let the child be the center of the family, the center of the universe. They are part of the family. They are part of the family, and they have a job to do in that family, just like you are part of the family and you have a job to do in that family. And as the family grows, whether you have more members or different members, or people are getting older and responsibilities change, the family dynamics can change too. But as long as they're in your home, and as long as they are under the age of 18, either one of those or both of those, you are the authority, and they are supposed to do what you tell them. Right? That is a way it's supposed to happen. Now, if you're a reasonable person with reasonable rules and reasonable expectations, there really shouldn't be any major problems. All children are going to push the boundaries a little bit. They're going to test. Okay, all right, now I'm going to see how far or how long I can get away with this. They're going to do that, and you have to let them know where that boundary lies. And certainly, talking back to you, yelling at you, defying you, is a boundary. The important thing at this, when they get older, 15, 16, you actually are not going to be able to make them do things. If you think it's hard to make a 9-year-old who's defiant, leave a friend's house, how are you going to get a 16-year-old who's defiant to leave? Or how are you going to make sure that they follow the curfew you set? or behave the way you want them to behave when they're out on their own. I promise you this isn't something that they outgrow. So one of the things that parents that are facing this in different stages and with young children, they get their feelings hurt. Parents get their feelings hurt that their child acted this way. Well, it's completely normal behavior for children to try and get their own way. I mean, they cry when they're hungry, when they're infants. They're trying to get something. They run and jump in your lap when they want a hug. They want something. And as they get older, they still want things, and they're going to try to get the things that you want. So don't get your feelings hurt, and don't feel like it's personal. They're just sowing their oats and trying to spread their wings and see what this whole big bad world can get them. All right. And as parents, we teach them there's boundaries for what you can get. There's boundaries for how you can get it. And you are the one, as the parent, so that has to be taught to children. So don't take it as hurting your feelings when they act that way, or if they are defiant. Just understand that they are trying out a behavior, and your job is to teach them that behavior is not going to work. That behavior will not get them what they want. And that is your job as the parent. Sometimes parents in this situation service to your child. At that young age, you cannot be their friend. You can be their support. You can be their confidant. You can be their biggest fan, their cheerleader. But to be their friend at a time when they're trying to develop and learn how to grow and to become a young adult, that's a friend. And I know that not everybody agrees with that, but what can happen is, just like with any friendship, you can argue, you can get mad at your friend, give them the cold shoulder, take a break from the friendship, have more power than the other person in the friendship. All of that can happen with a parent-child relationship that's been based on, well, we're equals, we're friends. That you can't have equal in a parent-child relationship if you want to be the educator, the teacher, or the leader. You can't have that equal footing. You've got to take the authority and parent. So if this is a style or a problem that you're having right now, and you're like, okay, how do I fix this? So I've let this go on way too difficulty getting my child to do what it is that I want them to do. So how do I stop that cycle? How do I, fix this issue? Well, the first thing that you need to do, and about older children now, you're 9, 10, 11-year-olds. You need to sit down and, guys, I have messed up and let you get, and quite honestly, it really has stopped. So here's that I'm putting in place. Now, whatever that rule is, stick with it. Not stick with it. You have to follow through. Like I mentioned earlier, it's supposed to take 5 minutes, 20 minutes, take 40 minutes, could take an hour, but you have to outlast them. All right. So if you tell them, well, you're grounded for, next weekend because you this way, something fun comes up that everybody wants to do, you cannot break that. If you break that, the child knows that there's loopholes to this, and your authority in the relationship is, and you're not going to be able to guide your child, teach your child, get the respect and the obedience that you deserve from your child. All right? If nobody respects rules that aren't followed, if there's a rule that society needs to follow, if you break that rule, then here are the consequences, and those consequences are always met or doled out. then people respect that law. They respect that rule. If there's, well, you can kind of fudge a little bit here or there, people don't hold to the rule. They don't respect the rule. They don't respect that law. Kids are the same, and they learn that from you, right? So if you've set a rule, if you've set a law in your family, make sure you follow through with it. So when you're trying to change a behavior, you can't expect it just to change overnight. You can't expect that it's just gonna, you say, quit acting that way, that's the new rule. Well, they're not gonna just automatically figure that out. You're gonna have to set some in-between rules. So if your rule is you cannot speak to me disrespectfully, if you can't speak to me respectfully, you're gonna have timeout. When you go to the, they speak to you in between that little warning time. Say, okay, what you just said to me was disrespectful. What is something else that you should have said? Give them an opportunity to correct it. And most times children will. So let's say that but you said it yelling and crying, and it didn't appear to me that you meant it. After that second, if you get to a third time where you still haven't gotten the kind of response that you're expecting or that you want, that's when you have to put in the consequence, whatever that punishment was going to be, timeout or loss of a privilege, whatever it is for your family. But give them that little time. If you're trying to change a behavior for an older child that they've been doing for a while and getting their way, give them a little bit of an opportunity to fix it, and don't expect it just to change it. So we're talking about teenagers that are having this issue. And, I was talking to a dad the other day, and he was very frustrated. He was a very kind man, but his teenager was just going through an extremely defiant time. And, he told his dad straight up, his dad wanted him to go do something. And he said, well, you can't make me. And I was talking to the dad, and the dad said, I really can't. I can't make him. He's much bigger than me, much stronger than me. He goes, what am I going to do? Try to drag him out the door and make him do whatever it is he was supposed to do? And he goes, I actually can't make him. And that is the issue that we want to not get to as parents, to where you have a teenager who feels so much lack of respect for their parent that they would not do what their parent asked them to do. And without going into too much detail, this was not a request that was, it was just a normal request from a teenager in your family to help out with something like mow the lawn. It wasn't anything horrible or crazy. So what do? So at this point, you might have to get a third party. Maybe some counseling is in order, appropriate. Have a heart-to-heart about respecting each other, and find out what the problem is. Okay, that is extremely disrespectful behavior to me as your parent, and it doesn't help our family when you act like that. Can you please tell me why you are acting like this? Have a chance to sit down and see if you can find out why. And they may be very angry at you for something. They may feel like they don't respect you for some reason. There's, besides just getting their own, could be that they're just very selfish and they only want to do what they want to do. You might find out some things that are going on. You might find out some things that maybe you did that hurt their feelings or made them angry at you. There may be a miscommunication. So those are things that you're going to have to sit down and talk and say, and do some tough love. Like you're here at this house, you're in my home, you are going to have to follow these rules. And quite honestly, you may or may not at this time be able to smooth out that future, smooth that out with them. If you are really struggling and it's a physical thing, a violent thing, or you're concerned, definitely bring in some help. Find somebody that you can talk to, and together, maybe you need some time apart, some counseling for yourself. How do I reach him? Get some counseling for your child. They're going through something, obviously, and then have some time together where you work on this. But I can guarantee you, if you do it with yelling and screaming and, getting on their level, it's like yelling with a 4-year-old. That doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help yelling at a 24-year-old. All right. So make sure that you do. So that's so important at the young entry age, to not allow them to be defiant to you. That might be something to look at too, is what are the reasons for this? Is it because they just want to get their way? Is it because they are angry at you for some reason? Is it because they are just trying to see, they saw their friend do it at their friend's house and their mom gave in, and try that with my mom or my dad or my grandma or, whoever they're with, see if it works. They might be just doing something like that. The other thing that it could be is that they are actually afraid to do what you're asking them to do. If we're talking about picking up our toys, I don't expect them to be afraid about that. Go play soccer, and they don't want to go. Maybe they are afraid. Maybe they're afraid of, what is this all about? Or somebody on the team scares me, or the coach yelled at everybody the other day, and I don't know if he's going to yell at us again. Find out if it's a fear thing, or if it's just strictly a selfish, I don't want to do what you are telling me to do right now, or if they're just trying out new boundaries. And if it's not a fear thing, they don't get to win. They don't get to yell at you. They don't get to tell you that they don't have to do what you want them to do. It's not a gray area. All right. It's you said this, they're supposed to do that. That's it. There is not an in between. So just make sure that wherever you're at, right at the beginning of parenting, in the middle of it, you've got this young kid who you want to get them back in the groove of things, get them back to obedient behavior, get them back to respectful behavior. Take your time with that. Make sure that you put your foot down and you do discipline them. Do not let them get away with it. Or you might find yourself in this situation, as this dad was talking to me the other day, where he really physically could not make his 16-year-old do what he wanted him to do. That takes a lot more work, a lot more time, and a lot more effort to fix a problem like that than it does when they're 4 or 5 years old, even 9 or 10 years old. So I talked earlier about being your kid's friend. You are doing them a disservice at a young age if that is the way that you want to parent, by being their friend. That doesn't mean you can't have fun with them. That doesn't mean that you can't go on trips and vacations and play games and laugh and do silly things and go to the movies together and all that kind of stuff. That's not just what a friend does. That's what a family does. And a family has a hierarchy. They have an authority. Somebody's in charge of the family. And when you're doing those things, and the more the children behave, and the more they are obedient, and the more they are respectful, the more fun you all get to do in having those things. I have some families that they never take their children out to dinner, never, because the behavior problem is so bad. And that's a real sad thing that you can't do that with your family. You can't go to a restaurant and enjoy a meal together. When they're 2 and 3, yeah, don't expect perfect behavior at a dinner for those little preschoolers, but when they're 7, 8, or 9, yeah, they need to be able to sit through a meal without running around the restaurant. So if you're not disciplining your children, you are doing them a disservice, because as they are trying to move forward in life from 3rd grade to 4th grade, they want to be on the team, they want to get into the choir, or they want to be in the band, or they want to be able to do this or that. If they are disrespectful and disobedient, these are things that are slowly going to be taken away from them. These opportunities are going to be taken away from them, and they're going to start to feel isolated, and their confidence is going to be affected. And they may act out in another way. Instead of withdrawing and losing confidence, they may act out by being mean and disrespectful to other people, being mean and disrespectful to their teachers at school, and find themselves getting in trouble and finding that they are being disliked by adults. What a tough thing for a kid to have to go through every day. None of the teachers like them, and so when you want to be your child's friend at a young age, I want you to just think about, okay, am I helping my child get along with the rest of, the authority figures that are going to be in this child's life? And this is not, every child really is different. And those of you who have, more than one child, this. Very few of them are exactly alike. You could have 5 kids and every one of them is very different, So, how you discipline one is very different from how you discipline another. So just kind of look at each individual child and see, if you are having this problem, how are you going to handle it? How are you going to direct it? How are you going to fix it? And when you do, and you help this child learn how to be respectful and kind and obedient to you, they're going to do the same thing to other adults. And when they do that, they're going to be accepted. They're going to be offered more opportunities. Oh, hey, I really want you to join this team. You've been doing really well. Yeah, I know for me and my martial arts program, we have different levels of programming, and it really is not based on the excellent skill level of the student. It's going up to higher levels is so often based on behavior and the ability to follow rules and listen. I can't have kids sparring towards each other, one punching, one blocking, or one kicking and one evading or dodging. I can't have children doing that if they're not going to follow the rules, if they're not going to listen and behave. So that's just one example of how a child if they're learning to behave, can move up and experience different things in different places. That's just from one teacher. Now, if you are having this issue, a good martial arts program can partner with you and help you fix this. So you come in and you say, okay, I'm working with a little child recently who is talking back to her family. And so she's coming in, she's been to about 4 or 5 classes, and this is something that we're working on, and as she learns how to behave better at home and behave better in a classroom and behave better at school, she's going to find that she's going to be rewarded for that. We reward kids with stripes and belts and different privileges and things that they get to do. And as she learns to behave properly, she's going to be able to get to do a lot more things, and it's very clear at our school that that's how you can move up. So make it very clear at home. If you're wanting your children to behave in a better way, a different way, more respectful way, let them know, let them know what will be the good thing that will happen next. And it's not a bribe. It's, I tell teenagers this all the time. Guys, if you're disrespectful to your parents, if you don't follow the rules when you're 13 and 14, you are not going to be allowed to just get in a 2-ton vehicle and drive off into the sunset and have a great time. They're not going to give you the keys to anything. You've got to follow the rules, be respectful, and treat your parents with the respect that they deserve, and then they will give you privileges, such as being able to drive a car or go the weekend on a school trip. It's important. And I think that's the biggest thing when we talk about discipline problems. I tell people this often, and it really is true. Oftentimes I really can see the future. And the reason is because I have seen the past repeat itself so many times. I see children who are left to be unruly and be disobedient, be disrespectful, without fixing that, and things go bad. Things are tough. Sometimes there's reconciliation and healing, and sometimes there's not. I've seen parents who have a child with problems, and they work on correcting them, and they get help, and they get a team of people to help them fix this, and the child changes, and the family changes, and it's a great thing. So wherever you're at, make sure that you take a glimpse into the future with me about what life's going to be like if you don't get a handle on this discipline problem at a young age. And I say discipline problem, being obedient, respectful. A child yelling at you that make me, or I don't want to, or I don't have to, is disobedient and disrespectful and need to be addressed. There's the last thing today is there are times, maybe you have a child who has some different different things that they're working with, like ADHD or autism, sensory issues, learning, different learning abilities, things like that will require some outside help, some outside intervention from a physician or a licensed counselor. These are things that, the tips that I'm giving about behaviors, the kids in our classes who have things like this that they're working on, and we do have quite a few, I don't require any less discipline from them than I do from a child who isn't working through ADHD, or autism. The discipline that is required is the same. The patience level might need to be a little higher, working with them, helping them understand, helping them, figure out how to follow the rules correctly. But their parents also have them in other therapies and advice from physicians and things like that we're working together, and parents, let me just remind you, and I've said this before too, but if your child does have something like this, make sure you do tell their teachers, because the only way that we can help you and help them is to have the most information that we possibly can, just like an adult that's doing martial arts to learn self-defense. If they tell us that that's their primary reason for learning martial arts is so that they can protect themselves, we as instructors can make sure that every lesson that we have with them is going to help them towards that goal. Same thing with your child. If it's issues on focusing and they need help focusing because they're having a hard time at school, the more we know, we will work on that focusing with your child. So just make sure that you do tell the teachers and coaches in your child's life if they do have some things that you guys are working on together, and it will help them make a big difference. So that is really all that I had on that subject tonight, unless anybody else has any questions. Um, how long does it take? Well, uh, that is a open-ended, loaded question. It takes as long as it takes, and that's the thing is you've just got to stay consistent, stay positive, and praise them when they do it right. If they did it right, they didn't yell, they fixed it. You gave them that opportunity to, hey, don't you want to say that a little differently to me? And they step back and say, yes, I'm sorry. Reward them for that and take your time. And if it's a real goal of yours, it will get better. I promise. All right. You guys have a great night. It's been my pleasure talking to you guys, and I will see you all soon.